In the last video, I told you that the biggest mistake that most people with hypothyroidism or Hashimoto's make is to listen to their doctor when their doctor says that there is absolutely nothing that they can do other than take medication. I then went on to explain why this is such bad advice and why it's essential to address your thyroid issues from the root cause. If you haven't watched that video yet, I highly recommend you go and do so, as it'll form the basis of why the formula in this video makes sense. Now, on to why the formula works. Remember in the last video how I mentioned there are 3 factors that need to be in place for autoimmune disease to exist? The first were your genes, and unfortunately we have no control over those. You're born with them and they don't change. So if you have a gene for Hashimoto's, you have a gene for Hashimoto's. There's no point really in spending any time there. But the other 2 factors were gene expression, or the ability to essentially turn a gene on or off, and leaky gut or increased intestinal permeability. Both of these we do have some control over. And these are the ones we're going to utilize in our roadmap to thriving with an autoimmune disease. So before I tell you what to do, let me tell you why you do them. So gene expression, or the turning on or off of the genes and their functions, can be affected by a multitude of things. Your diet, your lifestyle, toxins you encounter, your environment, and so on. Essentially, assorted genes throughout your body are constantly working. They're building and they're repairing, regenerating, and sometimes even destroying your cells based on the signals that they get from the immediate environment. And an important thing to note is that genes don't know or care whether these environmental signals help or hurt your health. They simply react to each stimulus in an effort to promote your immediate survival. So to demonstrate gene expression, using a totally made-up example here, say you have a gene for juggler's disease. If you go within 10 feet of a juggler, this gene turns on and you suddenly become a juggler. Your genes tell your cells to produce the necessary properties and functions to help you juggle. But then, if you leave the 10-foot radius of the other juggler, these genes switch off and suddenly you don't juggle anymore. Your genes shut off the messages to the cells to perform the juggling function. Now, I know this is a silly example, but it's how gene expression works. And for some with autoimmune disease, it can be how they switch on and off their disease. Like sometimes a person is exposed to a chemical, and as long as they are exposed to that chemical, they have the disease and the symptoms of the disease, because their genes are switched on. But as soon as they stop that chemical exposure, their disease goes away because their genes are switched off. Celiac disease functions like this. As long as a person with celiac disease eats gluten, the autoimmune attack continues. But when they stop eating gluten, they can often make a full recovery. In this case, gluten is the trigger for gene expression to turn on. It can get a lot more complex though, as things like chronic stress, lack of sleep, too much exercise, etc. can be triggers for these gene expressions when your nervous system can't get into the parasympathetic rest and digest mode and is instead stuck in the sympathetic fight or flight mode. When your body can't do the simple housekeeping functions to keep it healthy, certain genes may turn on that will trigger your autoimmune disease activity. Chronic inflammation can also occur from this too. When your body is constantly responding to stimuli that is meant to be like acute, like stress, but has become long-term. And when you have chronic inflammation, not only are you susceptible to a bunch of diseases like cardiovascular disease, but it also taxes your immune system backup response to be able to shut down any attacks against your own tissue, otherwise known as autoimmune disease. So essentially, you want to stop the genes that promote attacks against your tissue from turning on or switch them off if they're constantly on. And along with gene expression, the third element that needs to be in place for autoimmune disease to keep happening is a leaky gut. That's the slang term for it, but it's also called increased intestinal permeability. In the simplest form, various factors have caused the gut lining to become damaged, and microscopic holes have formed throughout. This allows contents of the gut to leak out into the bloodstream and the lymphatic system. Now, by the time your food gets to this point, it's not usually food anymore. It's usually more like incompletely digested proteins, as well as bacteria and pathogens that are supposed to stay within the confines of your gut. Right on the other side of the gut lining, there are a whole bunch of immune cells waiting to check for invaders. And since your food and pathogens aren't supposed to get into the bloodstream, when they do, the immune system mounts an attack. That's what it's supposed to do. This means if you already have autoimmune activity going on against, say, your thyroid, the signal is put out to keep attacking because there are invaders. And furthermore, say you ate gluten and that got into your bloodstream. Your body then marks that gluten protein as an invader, as it should, and then produces antibodies against it. But here's the kicker. The molecular structure of thyroid tissue is very similar to gliadin, the protein portion of gluten. So this means when your body produces antibodies against gluten, and then gluten gets into your bloodstream via a leaky gut, the immune system mounts a system-wide attack. And guess what other tissue might also get destroyed? Yep, your thyroid tissue. That's why it's crucial to heal your gut when you're trying to stop an autoimmune attack against your thyroid. And in fact, healing your gut can also bring about the biggest improvements in your symptoms as well. Since by healing your gut, you stop the stuff from going across the gut barrier, thereby stopping that whole entire system-wide immune response. Hopefully this helps you to see that by creating the habits that support your gene expression in a healthy way, and then healing your gut, you can address the root cause of why you feel symptoms and why your thyroid tissue is still being attacked. And by doing that, you stop, or at least drastically reduce the attack. So what is the roadmap? What do you do to stop the attack? Well, because healing a leaky gut is usually the most impactful, I recommend you start there. I have found that both through personal experience and the experience of working with countless clients over the years, that doing either the autoimmune protocol, which is also called the AIP diet, or the paleo diet really helps a ton. However, any diet that has the aim of healing a leaky gut can be beneficial. I just find AIP and paleo to be very straightforward, effective, and easy to get in a lot of the beneficial nutrients. The very short difference between these diets is that paleo removes grains, dairy, beans, and legumes, refined sugars, and highly processed foods. So basically, you eat vegetables, fruits, meats, seafood, nuts, seeds, eggs, and fat. There are some room in the paleo diet for some treats that use natural sugars like coconut sugar, maple syrup, and honey. AIP, on the other hand, is a subset of paleo and further removes nuts, seeds, nightshades, eggs, and food additives. So you eat vegetables, fruits, meats, seafoods, and fats. And you can also have an occasional treat with coconut sugar, maple syrup, or honey. The idea behind both of these templates, though, are to remove foods that research and experience have shown to either form leaky gut or exacerbate an already leaky gut. Those foods can do this through a lot of different mechanisms that are outside the scope of this video. Once you remove the foods that can irritate your gut can heal. And then the nutrient-dense foods can replenish any nutrient deficiencies, which are unfortunately extremely common. And then also your immune system response can ramp down, the chronic system-wide inflammation can heal, and eventually the autoimmune attack stops. AIP is obviously more restrictive and the diet I recommend for people that really aren't feeling well from their symptoms, as it's the quickest to help resolve everything. But paleo is also a great option, especially if you've never tried any sort of restrictive diet before, or are perhaps not feeling your best, but also not suffering too much. With either format, you can reintroduce foods after a period of time. I usually say 1 to 3 months after starting is pretty good. And then you see how you do with these non-AIP or non-paleo foods. And the reason I don't usually say just to do gluten-free from the start is that the proteins in many foods, like zein in corn, for instance, and casein in dairy, can look similar to gluten in your body and to the antibodies. So even if you're not eating gluten, if you're continuing to eat corn on a regular basis, gut healing may not happen and the immune response will continue to be on higher alert. But once you've healed your gut, it's entirely possible that you can go back to just a gluten-free diet. As for going back to non-gluten-free diet, well, I'll have to save the rationale behind why that might not be such a great idea for another video, but let's just say there is a strong link between gluten and autoimmune disease, whether you are celiac or not. So I have found that most of my clients feel so much better staying gluten-free. If you want to know more about the paleo and AIP diets, I have a ton of information both on this channel and on my website at thrivingautoimmune.com. So step number 1 in the roadmap is to change your diet. And as I mentioned before, I think that is the single best and most effective thing that you can do to make a difference. Step number 2 can occur at the same time as step number 1, and that is making sure to get 7 to 9 hours of sleep each night. That means prioritizing sleep. No late night Netflix binges or getting up at 4 a.m. to work out, at least in the first few weeks of the diet. Sleep is your friend during this time, as it can really give your body a chance to heal. And for those of you who have insomnia, don't freak out about this. Get what sleep you can. More than anything, I just want you to prioritize trying to get sleep over doing other things. There are many things that you can do to get better sleep, and if you're interested in some of those, you can watch this video here where I go into many of these tips. So step number 3 is to do some sort of exercise. When I did AIP, I just did one 1-minute plank plus 10 countertop push-ups and a short walk every day, as that is all I could handle. Anything more and I felt super tired and like I couldn't recover. So do whatever works best for you. If you aren't exercising before starting the diet portion, I'd wait at least a week or 2 before you start incorporating exercise into your routine, as it can be a lot on your body to handle, and especially with the diet. So start off slow. As I mentioned in my autoimmune-induced exercise intolerance video up here, exercise can cause flares. So try gentler things like yoga, qigong, or walking. And at first, you can even only do it 1 to 2 times a week. If you're already working out on a regular basis before you start this diet, you can continue to do so. But if you notice that you feel overly tired or any autoimmune symptoms after doing so, you may want to back off slightly for a few weeks. Exercise is stress on the body, and sometimes it just can be too much, especially while your body is really working hard to heal. Step number 4, once you have the first 3 steps going on and feel good about them, take 10 to 15 minutes a day to bring in some mindfulness or stress relief. I personally love Qigong, meditation, and EFT tapping for this, but there are a gazillion ways to do this. You do not have to go on some week-long silent meditation retreat. Just start figuring out the things that work best for you to relieve your stress. Some ideas include what I already mentioned, but also reading a book, prayer, sitting in nature, going for a walk, breath work, listening to relaxing music, all of these kind of things. The idea with any of these is to just get your nervous system out of the chronic fight or flight mode into parasympathetic rest and digest mode. Doing this is like working out a muscle. The more you do it over and over again, the easier it will be, and your body will know what to do. So while sitting 10 minutes in silence today may be incredibly hard for you, if you did it every day for a month, even when you aren't in the least bit stressed, it will probably be so much easier to do and a lot easier for your nervous system to switch over to the rest and digest mode when you really need it to do so. Then once you have all of these things going, there's some other areas that you can start looking into as well. Things like looking at other easy areas to clean up, like toxins in your house, beauty products, and so on. Sometimes cleaning these up with non-toxic and cleaner versions can really help with your symptoms as well. And if you have any resistance to eating the diet that you've chosen or a hard time sticking to it, I would delve into why that is and clear it, because as many times it's because you aren't feeling love and respect for yourself. And you are using food to numb your uncomfortable feelings. While yes, this sucks and can be the subject of like years worth of videos, let me just state the cold hard truth that if you can't love and respect your body long enough to make it through a few months of not eating certain foods, do you really expect that you're going to magically get better? You only get one body, a body that does a bazillion functions every day to keep you alive and endures all of the stuff that you throw at it. Doesn't it deserve some respect? Clearing this is often easier said than done, but some things I highly recommend are journaling and EFT tapping. And you can work with a coach or a therapist who can help you identify the thoughts and the emotions that are triggering you to stray and give into cravings. Once you've gone through all of these things for at least a month and start feeling better, you can start reintroducing foods. Here's a video I recommend to watch if you are doing AIP and want to know how to successfully reintroduce foods. So you don't stop healing at this point. You simply are just expanding your diet and finding out if there are still things that are causing reactions. After 90 days, if you are still not feeling better, that would be a time to work with a doctor, functional medicine practitioner, or naturopath to address any sort of underlying cause. These are things like gut infections, parasites, heavy metal toxicity, and so on that may be keeping you still sick. While the majority of people feel better with diet, there are cases that do need further attention, and they will continue to trigger your immune system if it's not addressed. But even if that is you, having healed your gut with the diet will help this process go so much faster. So all is not lost. And then you can start incorporating more exercise and stress relief into your life as you have the ability and the desire to do so. Then it's just a matter of finding a good balance of exercise, stress relief, and sleep that works the best for you, along with continuing to reintroduce the foods until you get to a maintenance diet that you can eat long term. As you manage stress and your nervous system and heal, you should be able to tolerate more. For instance, my diet is so much wider than it was 9 years ago when I was at my sickest. If you're still having flares after this, start taking a hard look at your habits, beliefs, and actions that are causing you to feel inadequate, have to work really hard, please people, and generally stay in an anxious, type A, nervous system kind of imbalance. Perhaps there is past trauma that needs to be addressed, and I would do that with an expert trained in trauma, but the underlying idea is to get rid of what was causing your nervous system to feel unsafe and imbalanced in the first place, so that you can live in peace. That's really the formula to thriving with an autoimmune disease, though. I've used this with my clients throughout the years with a remarkable success. Now, if you feel like you want to try this, but it sounds overwhelming, or that you would need some hand-holding through the whole entire process, I will be offering a transformational group program soon, which will walk you through step by step through this entire process. When you join the program, you'll get access to foundational videos that will help you understand even more of what's going on in your body and why it is so critical to make changes if you want to stop your symptoms and avoid getting even more autoimmune diseases in the future, since unfortunately that is extremely common. You'll get more in-depth rundowns of the paleo and AIP diets and complete clarity of which one will be the best one for you through materials, a quiz, and even a live call. Then you'll get recipes, meal plans, and meal prep instructions to get started for each of these diets. And then once the program actually starts, you'll go through your chosen diet with the other participants, and each week you'll learn more about what to expect those weeks, and which lifestyle pieces to implement and how, and even how to start to dive into some of those habits that may be keeping your nervous system stuck in the whole entire fight or flight mode. You'll be given specific workouts to try, walk through the correct way to reintroduce foods, and tools to help you when you have cravings, hit the desire to cheat, and feel like you can't do it anymore. All of this will be supported with live Q&A calls each week so that you can get your questions answered and hear what others are going through. If you're interested in hearing more about this program, sign up for the waitlist below this video or go to thrivingautoimmune.com/AI program. Getting on the waitlist doesn't mean that you will have to join or anything, but it will get you the opportunity to learn when I open enrollment, get early bird pricing, and even have access to special bonuses. Again, thrivingautoimmune.com/AI program to sign up for the waitlist. I truly hope the info in this video helps you to understand just how much control that you do have over your disease, and as a result, your symptoms. The way I see it is that you have two choices. You can listen to your doctor when they say that there's absolutely nothing else that you can do other than take medication for your disease, or you can take matters into your own hands and try what I mentioned in this video. I tried to take my doctor's advice for 8 years, and all it got me was severe Hashimoto's with symptoms that eventually robbed me of my quality of life, until I did something about it. Now, I feel as if I don't have a disease, and I can do all of the things that I love to do. So I don't think it's ever too late to get your life back, nor never too early to start if you still have your life. The choice is truly yours to make. And if you're like, okay, what exactly do you eat for your Hashimoto's after doing all of this? Watch this video next, where I talk about my current diet to maintain a flare-free life. I'll see you next time.